Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. We're just going to give folks a few minutes to join us. Thank you so much. Feel free to use the chat, introduce yourself in the chat. We are so grateful to have you here today. Get started in just a moment. Get critical mass. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy May Day. Feel free to share us where you're coming from in the chat. Introduce yourself. We're going to get started in just a second here. Awesome. Seeing got some New York in the house. That's awesome. Everyone, welcome. Great. Well, welcome everyone. We can go ahead and get started. I am so grateful to have you all here with us today. Yeah, please feel free to continue using the chat, introduce each other, yourselves to each other. We're really grateful for you joining us. My name is Whitney Shepard. I am Manager of Stakeholder Engagement at Majority Action. On behalf of our fellow co-hosts, United for Respect and Americans for Financial Reform, I am so pleased to welcome you all here today to our May Day Roundtable discussion on racial equity and workplace safety at Walmart. I'd also like to just take a quick moment to appreciate all who made today possible, including amazing colleagues and partners, all of you in the audience, and a special shout out to Shanae Arbery, research analyst from United for Respect, who could not be here with us today, but whose work and contributions were critical to making today happen. Before we dive in, I'd like to just take a moment to share a few notes with you all in the audience. For your awareness, this webinar is being recorded, as well as materials and relevant links that will be shared in the chat throughout the webinar for your reference. Both that recording and the materials, as well as the slide deck, will be shared with all of the participants following this event as well. If anyone needs to enable closed captioning, you can do so by clicking below on your toolbar for Zoom, and that should enable the closed captioning transcript to generate. My awesome colleague, Laura DePalma, will be monitoring the chat today, as well as the Q&A box. So please feel free to use that Q&A box. If you have any questions that come up for you throughout the roundtable, we'll be sure to monitor that and do our best to answer those questions at the end of our program together and within our follow-up communications. So to open us up, I'd like to take a moment just to draw our connection between our history and where we are now. So as we know, today is May Day. Happy May Day, everyone. So on and around this day in 1886 in the United States, hundreds of thousands of laborers who were overworked, experiencing dangerous conditions and low pay came together to generate national movement towards the 8-hour workday. Now, this slide here demonstrates the social and economic conditions that preceded May Day in 1886 as compared to our conditions today in 2024. What you're seeing here is not a typo. The truth is that although much has changed since May Day in 1886, we are still very much a nation that struggles to protect and provide for all of our people in sustainable and equitable ways. We are not progressing and evolving in a way that uses our knowledge that worker rights are good for our democracy and our economy. So one thing is clear. Progress that has been made in the past is now under threat more than ever. It's also important to note that the gains won through organized labor were also not always equitably distributed across racial lines. Historically, in the United States, Black people have been excluded from the category of worker, instead classified as slave. We have survived through a majority of Black occupations and jobs being left out of federal labor law protections. Black people have also historically been relegated to outside of the category of human, with policies such as the 3/5 Compromise and being traded and treated as chattel property. That was our then. As for our now, how do we honestly assess our social and economic progress from the past when systems such as coerced labor, modern day forms of slavery, and quote unquote convict leasing are still a part of our reality in 2024, as in the case of Alabama, and the fact that these systems still primarily and significantly affect people of color? Because of the racialized history and present tense of labor and the economy in the United States and our roots in the slave economy, it becomes critically important that solutions with an explicit racial equity lens are pursued. This is true when it comes to all relevant frameworks, including those of worker and human rights. What is also a part of the shared reality of then and now was and is, despite employer resistance, strong organized labor and solidarity with workers allows for gains in pressing times that benefit all of us. The labor resurgence of the last couple of years demonstrate that if we come together and hear rather than quell diverse perspectives and interests, we can generate the comprehensive, inclusive, and sustainable outcomes we desperately need to replace outdated and unjust systems that no longer serve us. It's up to us to determine what we want our now to look like. And if we want our now to look different for workers, our communities, and our economy, we need to focus on companies like Walmart. Now, why Walmart? Walmart is both the nation's largest private employer overall and the largest employer of Black workers. Over 50% of its hourly workforce identifies people of color. Beyond its status as the largest private employer, Walmart is also the nation's largest retailer, grocer, and importer of consumer goods. Given its size, Walmart's corporate practices and policies set the standards within the given its size, Walmart's corporate practices and its policies set the standards and have a far-reaching impact on our economy. This is included but not limited to the low-wage labor market, retail, grocery, and logistics industries. So why are we here today? Why these voices and why now? This roundtable brings together what you'll hear many of us refer to as stakeholders of Walmart. And what we mean by stakeholder is anyone who has a vested interest in a company and who can impact or be impacted by a business's operations and performance. People attending today's webinar, you all, show up today as many kinds of stakeholders. Your workers employed by Walmart around the country. Your investors with institutions that own and manage shares at Walmart. Your advocates for change that have data and information and reports that could improve Walmart's practices. Well, and of course, people who work at Walmart are in many instances its customers as well. They shop at Walmart or they invest at Walmart through investment vehicles such as a 401k. Many investors in Walmart also have Walmart in their communities or may have people who in their lives who work at Walmart. So the reality is that many of us have multiple, interconnected, and interdependent stakes at companies like Walmart. And we are better served when we honor and work with this fact rather than against it. So in this vein, I am so honored to help welcome and feature our today's speakers who represent a broad range of stakeholders that bring critical perspectives needed to ensure that Walmart operates in a sustainable and equitable manner. So we are so pleased today to be joined by Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of the 3rd District of Ohio, Brittany Jenkins from National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, Daniel Coles, a Walmart associate with over 31 years of experience and a leader with United for Respect, Tanika Hightower, a 6-year Walmart associate stakeholder, and also a leader with United for Respect. Excuse us for that not being noted on the slide. We'll be sure to add their leadership with United for Respect on there. And also Yumi Narita, Executive Director of Corporate Governance at the Office of the New York City Comptroller. Thank you so much to our speakers for joining us. We are so excited to have you here, and thank you all for joining us. So to kick us off in our program of this May Day Roundtable, I am so honored to be, we are very honored to be joined by a video from Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Since 2013, Congresswoman Beatty has proudly represented Ohio's 3rd Congressional District. She currently serves as senior member of the House of Financial Services Committee, and she was the first ever chair of Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. Congresswoman Beatty also served as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus in the 117th Congress. She is a vocal leader and advocate for racial justice and equity. Fortunately, given the House is in schedule today, the Congresswoman is busy at work and unable to join us live. However, she has taken time to still find a way to be with us through pre-recorded remarks. Please, let's take a listen.
Good afternoon. I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty from Ohio's 3rd Congressional District. I'm proud to join you for this roundtable discussion in celebration of May Day to recognize workers, advocates, and investors. As the former chair of the Financial Services Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion, I have long advocated for racial equity audits as a tool for corporate accountability and economic justice. These audits are beneficial not only to shareholders and employees, but also to the corporation itself. This proxy season, for the second year in a row, Walmart shareholders have filed a proposal asking for an independent racial equity audit. I applaud the shareholders and employees for understanding the need for these audits, which create opportunities for better business
Hello.
practices and improved performance. I look forward to working with you to make this a reality and to achieve diversity and inclusion for all. As the world's largest private employer and largest employer of Black people and women in the United States, Walmart has a responsibility to lead by example. Thank you again to our hosts for drawing attention to this important issue and for your tireless advocacy on behalf of American investors and employees. Yes, I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve this message.
And I'd like to thank Congresswoman Beatty for her incredible remarks and her leadership, and for taking the time to share her moving and timely with us. It is so important to understand how Congress and elected public officials can advocate for and impact the issues that touch all of our lives. Our co-host, Americans for Financial Reform, help to lead efforts that protect and advance legislation as related to environmental and social issues and corporate accountability. So next, I want to bring to the stage Brittany Jenkins, who joins us from the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health in her capacity as worker and network organizer and as Southern Region Coordinator. She also helps to lead the Worker Leadership Academy at COSH, which provides important training and leadership development for frontline workers. Just last week, National COSH released its Dirty Dozen Employers report, with Walmart making the list. We'll hear more from Brittany about the findings of that report. But I will just add that independent perspectives, such as National COSH's Dirty Dozen report and Oxfam's At Work and Under Watch report, which details worker surveillance at both Amazon and Walmart, both of which are available in our resource list that's being shared in the chat. Reports like these from advocate stakeholders are so essential to providing the verifiable data and information that not only investors and policymakers can use in their decision-making, but the work of advocates can also validate the experience of workers and has the ability to connect individual and interpersonal experiences to the larger systems and structures that underpin them. So without further ado, please welcome Brittany Jenkins to the stage. Brittany, we're so glad to have you with us today, here with us today.
Thank you. And I'm so glad to be here. So just a little bit about National COSH. We're a national network of 26 local health and safety coalitions or COSH groups. Our affiliates and partners like United for Respect support workers who are standing up to win safer work conditions. As stated last week, National COSH released our 2024 Dirty Dozen Unsafe Employer list as a part of our observation for Workers' Memorial Week, which takes place the last week of April. Workers' Memorial Week is observed across the U.S. and at rallies and visuals and public events like this. We honor workers who have become sick, injured, and lost their lives on the job, and renew our fight to win safer workplaces for all workers. More than 5,400 workers died from sudden trauma in the U.S. in 2022, 5.7% increase from 2021. Black and brown workers are dying at a higher rate than other workers. For way too long, these workers have been assigned the dirtiest and most dangerous jobs. This discrimination must end. Again, Walmart received the unfortunate pick of being on our Dirty Dozen list this year. They were selected from our extensive network of health and safety activists. We selected Walmart and other Dirty Dozen based on the severity of the safety and risks to workers, violations of safety standards and laws, the position of the company within the industry and economy, and the presence of campaigns by workers and allies to correct health and safety problems. Significantly, Walmart was chosen because of workers like Janika Perry, who in 2022, Janika was sick, but was pressured to avoid taking sick time, so she died in a Walmart's bathroom. Walmart's strict attendance policy and poor wages forces workers like Janika to stay at work when they're sick. No one should have to choose between a paycheck and their health. Walmart did not report Perry's death to the US OSHA, among several other injuries and illnesses that went underreported. Walmart also was chosen because workers like Jason Watkins, who was murdered last month while in an Illinois Walmart. Since 2014, Walmart has experienced over 1,100 shooting incidents and 300 deaths. In 2023, Walmart was cited and fined to prevent heavy boxes from falling 40 feet and seriously injuring an employee at a New York warehouse. And most importantly, Walmart was selected because workers are demanding change. And a key role of the Dirty Dozen is to uplift the voices of workers, which is exactly what employers should be doing to ensure the well-being of Walmart. It is important to continue to improve the shareholders resolution at Walmart by calling for racial equity audits and conducting a review of how the policies and practice may be contributed to an unsafe work environment as associates and customers. I hope that Walmart hears us today and take this in advice. So thank you again for having me. I will pass it back.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for your comments. Very important for us to hear. Wonderful. And I hope that we can honor Janika's story and her life through our renewed commitments to being agents of change. So in just a moment, you'll hear who I'm sure many of you are here to hear from, Daniel Coles and Tanika Hightower. We are both we are deeply grateful for both Daniel and Tanika's courageous leadership and for them using their voices for positive change in their workplace. Daniel and Tanika will also share a bit more about their lived experiences as they relate to workplace safety and racial equity at Walmart. And we'll also hear more from them on the shareholder proposals that are going to a vote this season and what they and other workers are advocating for. But for those who may not be familiar, what's a shareholder proposal? And what's it have to do with workplace safety and racial equity at Walmart? Well, in addition to it being May Day today, we are just about a month away from Walmart's annual shareholder meeting that's coming up on June 5th. For folks who don't know, these kinds of meetings are held once a year by our nation's largest companies, where essentially they talk business with their shareholders. Shareholders are people and institutions that own stock in their company. During these meetings, shareholders can submit and vote on proposals. These proposals are what we call shareholder proposals, and they are simply put recommendations that these shareholders, who again are partial owners of the company, would like to see the company address and or take on. Some of the most powerful of those proposals are those that call for independent audits and assessments of the company's performance on critical issues like worker treatment and racial equity. This year, if we're able to bring the slide deck up onto slide 8, that would be wonderful. So this year, thanks so much. This year at Walmart, for folks' awareness, there are 4 critical shareholder proposals that will be voted on June 5th. 2 of which are backed, highlighted on the left, informed by Walmart workers, which again we'll hear about more in just a moment. But on the other side of the left hand of the screen, those 2 proposals we won't have too much time to dive into today. But we've listed the lead filer underneath there, and we encourage those in our audience to reach out if they have more questions about what these proposals represent. All 4 of these proposals help Walmart's corporate leaders adhere to their own on-record aspirations of creating workplaces, stores, and clubs and communities where everyone feels like they can belong. That's a direct quote. In order to accomplish this, the company and its stakeholders must have access to baseline data as it relates to the company's potential adverse impacts, risks, and missed business opportunities as it relates to worker safety, racial equity, and human rights outcomes. And for the diversified investor and us general humans who depend on it, a company's impact on the economy overall is also important to have data on. In order to make sure they are investing in the right things, investors have the right to know what it is they are investing in. Good business is predicated on trust. Trust is a social construct that underpins all exchange. But we must ask, how can trust be earned when there is insufficient transparency? It's worth mentioning that Walmart's leadership has typically responded in opposition to these kinds of proposals, often claiming that the company is already sufficiently addressing what these proposals are calling for. However, just like when we have a potential illness, we know there's a difference between self-diagnosis, going on WebMD and online and trying to figure it out ourselves, and that of a diagnosis of an expert, or that would come from a medical professional or a doctor. In that same vein, this is why it's so important that corporations conduct independent third party expert audits and reviews, and that stakeholders and investors in the company just don't take Walmart's word for it without seeking a second opinion, especially if that word is taken over the words of its own frontline workers. So, on that note, I am so pleased to welcome to the screen Daniel Cole to share his own words. Daniel has been a Walmart associate for over 31 years. He is also a leader with the United for Respect. This is the first time he'll be speaking at events such as this, so please let's show him some love and give him our full attention. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Coles. I'm a Walmart associate based in California. I've been with Walmart for 31 years. After all that time, at Walmart, more than 3 decades, I consider myself as an expert how the company operates. I have actually been associate longer than some Walmart shareholders have been invested in our company. I think it is important that y'all know what is actually going on inside our store and what's that. And this is why I'm here today. I have worked in various different departments at Walmart from day maintenance, night maintenance, as a layaway associate, as a cashier, as a sales force associate, as a stocker, and now as a cap one, which I mean, so then help with inventory management. I've also worked in different Walmart stores across California, so you can say I have seen it all. As a Walmart expert in 31 years experience, I like to tell you all about some of the things that I have both seen and experienced, things that you all should know about as a shareholder and a shareholder in our company. Dangerous working conditions at Walmart are far too common. Unfortunately, I have experienced the firsthand having paid the price with my health. I have sustained two life-changing injuries at Walmart that have affected my day-to-day well-being. I have sustained. Okay, I'm sorry. When I was a stocker, I lifted heavy boxes day in and day out for the months on end. Over time, I started noticing that I had begun walking differently. I felt instant pain in my groin area. Even it got so bad that I went to my doctor after uh, explaining to the workers that I explained the work that I do for Walmart. My doctor ran some tests and diagnosed me with the hernia disc. This injury was made worse because of my job duties. But it doesn't end there. Years later, I shipped into new to ship roles, becoming a cap one, so that I would no longer be required to lift weighting 50 pounds. At first, I found a new job to be stable. I would go into work and leave work without pain. But then my right hand would begin to suddenly hurt, lock up, and my fingers would not move. They would seize up, and these episodes made it difficult for me to do my required job task. Once again, the discomfort pain became so bad that I went to my doctor, and this is when I was diagnosed with carpal tunnel. 3 decades of work at Walmart has taken a heavy toll on my body, but the United for Respect, excuse me, listen to my pain. By getting involved with United for Respect, I filed a lawsuit against Walmart for the injuries that I sustained from working there, and I won. But the associates shouldn't have to file a lawsuit in order for Walmart to do the right thing. We need the company to create safer workplaces for associates before any more damage is done. I'm I'm supporting my sister Cynthia Murray by telling the shareholders that there is an opportunity here to truly make a difference. Walmart executives must hear our voices and understand that both associates and investors are united, calling for improvement, safety, and associates safety at Walmart. This health safety proposal is led by workers. It's Cynthia, it's Tanika, it's me. Okay, I'm sorry. And me asking on behalf of 1.6 million Walmart associates across the country for your support. We are the heartbeat of this company. We make your profits. We bring your customers. We deserve to work in a safe environment, free from injury, free from violence. Thank you for letting me share my story to you today.
Thank you
That's
so
it.
much. Thank you,
I'm
Daniel.
sorry.
Thank you so much for using your voice and for sharing your story. We are so grateful for you and your leadership. And it's such a strong reminder that no matter how uncomfortable some of us may be hearing about painful stories that are happening to these workers, that we have to lean into that discomfort and recognize the privilege and power that comes from just bearing witness rather than having to experience it. So thank you again, Daniel. That was incredibly powerful to hear from you. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Tanika Hightower to the stage. Tanika has been a Walmart associate stakeholder for over 6 years, and she's an active leader with United for Respect. Tanika's voice and experience are powerful. I know firsthand. In fall, I had the great honor to hear Tanika speak at ICCR's conference. There, in response to an investor who shared that part of their strategy that they push for in their engagements with companies are more employee surveys in order to gauge worker feedback and experience. Tanika astutely made a critical point that many workers lie on those surveys or don't take them seriously because they fear retaliation. It was a learning moment for so many of us in the room. And it's a reminder of that kind of firsthand knowledge that serves as a reminder of the critical insights of frontline workers and of the potential shortfalls of what it means to advocate for solutions for workers without consulting and working directly with them. I hope Tanika's leadership can serve as a model of how deeply important sharing our voices and stories can be, especially for workers. Sharing your experience is truly powerful and can inspire change. So thank you for taking the time to share your story. Without further ado, please help me welcome Tanika to our virtual stage, and she'll be sharing more about her experiences and what she thinks the best solutions are for her company moving forward.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I want to say thank you to everyone on the call today on this webinar, being present and just hearing our stories. We greatly appreciate being given the stage and having the opportunity to speak. So I'm just going to go right into it. Excuse me. I am a 6-year Walmart associate. I have done various jobs within the company. I have done most of those within management, which gives me a lot of insight into things that were and were not done correctly. I've seen various instances of unsafe working conditions throughout my 6-year tenure. As a result of also seeing it, I've also experienced it firsthand. My story is very similar to that of Daniel's. I continue to do the work as a manager within the deli and the bakery, and I had to go in and out of the freezer a lot within that role. And that over time caused me to end up with a bulging disc in my neck and a ripped disc in my back. And those injuries really changed my life. I was able to go to work before, but after that, you can't do more than what your doctor tells you. And once I turned that paperwork into my store and let them know what my doctor was telling me, I was immediately taken off and could not go back to work for over a year and a half. So I definitely understand the unsafe working conditions, but also in my role and in my experience, I see less and less people that look like me. I currently work in the Memphis, Tennessee area, which is predominantly minorities. And as a Walmart associate, I've seen this disparity firsthand of African American people not being represented. Black and brown people aren't truly represented in the management roles within the company. Me being an African American woman with more than 15 years of management and retail experience, I find it extremely difficult to advance within Walmart. And over the course of my 6 years at this corporation, I see less and less people who look like me. For decades, Walmart, run by the America's richest family, has been accused of exploiting Black workers like me through pay inequity, lack of diversity in management and in boardrooms, and meaningless virtual signaling. We're fed up. And that's why United for Respect has refiled a shareholders resolution at Walmart calling for a full racial equity audit. Walmart doesn't disclose hourly pay gaps by race, and we are asking them to do so. Racial equity audits are quickly becoming an industry standard as multinational companies such as Facebook, Apple, Airbnb, and Starbucks have agreed to analyze their impact on their workers of color. Walmart should do the same. Presently, Walmart comprises more than half of Walmart's total U.S. workforce by 49 to 51%, and only 27% of those are officers with any real power, and only 18% are on the board of directors. And if you go and do the research, those board of directors had to be Ivy League to even be considered for the roles they are in. We make up the majority of Walmart's workforce. It's time for Walmart leadership to really identify, prioritize, remedy, and reverse the corporation's negative impacts on people of color and communities of color. Company executives must remember that Walmart associates, people like me and Daniel and others who are on this call, we are the on the ground experts about what's happening in our stores. We know the changes that will make our jobs more safe and more equitable. And company executives need to listen to us because many have never even done the job. If you work at Walmart, please sign on to Ask Associates letter to our associate letter that will be delivered to executives before the shareholders meeting. The link is in the chat, and after you sign, please share with other people in your store because your voice does matter. You signing does make a difference, and if we all come together, we can all be heard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Tanika. Please excuse us, y'all. We are having some issues in the chat, but we will not be deterred because what you said is truth, and truth is power, and truth is knowledge. So thank you so much, Tanika. Your words mean so much, and your leadership. I'm just going to take a moment, take a deep breath in, and notice that what's happening in the chat is a good example for us of what we are being called to do. Whew. What side of history will we stand on? When people are advocating for their right to live, to dignity and life, and others feel moved to tear that down. So thank you, Tanika, for your bravery, for firing us up on this May Day, for reminding us why we're all here together. And thank you all for being with us. Last but most definitely not least, I'd like to welcome Yumi Narita, our executive director of corporate governance at the Office of the New York City Comptroller, which manages over $250 billion across 5 pension funds. Thank you. And I'm hoping, my folks on staff, hopefully you're, taking care of getting people out of the chat. or maybe we'll need to disable it if folks are unable to respect the space that we're bringing here together. But yes, I'd like to welcome Yumi Narita to the stage, Executive Director of Corporate Governance at the Office of the New York City Comptroller, which manages over $250 billion across 5 pension funds on behalf of public sector workers and retirees in New York City. These pension funds are invested in companies across the world with the goal of providing workers and retirees with a secure retirement decades into the future. As long-term investors, Yumi and the New York City Comptroller's Office have been some of the most powerful leaders in recognizing the importance of workers' voices and racial equity in fostering sustainable value creation, and have championed accountability on these issues at Starbucks, Amazon, and many more companies in recent years. Thank you all again for joining us, and please welcome Yumi Narita to the stage.
Thank you, Whitney. And I just want to say thank you to Brittany and Daniel and Tanika for being so courageous and coming on and speaking, to your voice about your experiences. I'm sure it's very, very challenging. As an investor, I think we oftentimes talk about human capital management, and it's under the guise of data and quantity and things like EO1 reports. But I really think that to be, truly impactful, we have to also understand that we need to listen to the actual employees of our portfolio companies and ensure that their voices are accounted for in how we think about a company's way of managing human capital. And to not do so is incredibly disempowering to employees, generally speaking, and particularly on a topic as basic as health and safety. Where are we going to get this information if not from the workers themselves? So that's sort of my general point when it comes to human capital management and employee voice. Secondly, for Walmart in particular, I've found this company, and I'm sure many of you investors on the line have found this as well, that they are incredibly challenging to engage. And that is because, as been mentioned by Tanika, the Walton family and the Waltons control, I think, 46% of this company, with even some of the biggest asset managers holding maybe 4 or 2% of the company. So by a little bit of context, when I worked when I worked in an asset manager and I cover this company, and there was the scandal at Walmart around their violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, we were not able to engage the company, even though we were 2% shareholder and 3rd on the list in terms of investors. And I think that type of mentality of a public company being run privately, and all of the governance and board oversight issues that surround that type of perspective from management, I think can be really challenging for investors. So when we talk about trust, and Whitney brought this up earlier, for investors, I would say, when you engage this company, firstly, do they allow you to talk to any independent board members? Do you trust those board members to oversee your interests and not those of the Walton family? Do they have the skill set and competency, do you believe, to oversee, this basically controlling shareholder in this company? So all of these things sort of are pure, basic governance questions that I think you should be asking management, and in particular, the independent board members of this company. In terms of the shareholder proposals, the 2 that have been discussed in the 4 on the screen, I think are incredibly important for your support, because it will be a drop in the bucket when it comes to the final vote tallies. And so if there's any encouragement that you feel you can give to the company by supporting those shareholder proposals, I believe you should, and you should do so aggressively than at a company that is structured differently and that may be more investor friendly. I also think as investors, we should be making this company accountable for vote tallies that subtract the controlling shareholder vote so that we could see, ultimately, and again, it will be very small, but of the unaffiliated investors, who are the ones that are actually supporting these shareholder proposals. That's generally, what I have to say in terms of the investor sort of mini analysis of Walmart, but I encourage you to reach out to all of the proponents of the shareholder proposals on View. And I'd also like to say that there's one proposal at Walmart that will need, I think, a little bit more investigation. And that's proposal 8, which I'm not even going to deem to mention too much about, but it is not necessarily like the other proposals. So thank you all. Thank you for the employees and Majority Action for letting me speak on this panel.
Thank you, Yumi. Thank you for your comments and your reminders of what we can do and what investors can do to take action now. So thank you all so much. And yes, for bearing with us, for showing solidarity in these moments. Momentarily, we're going to kick it to you, our audience, for any questions that you have. And just sending out a lot of love and solidarity for those of us that are still coming together. And as someone just pointed out into the chat, these attacks during the webinar literally underscore the need for these kinds of proposals and the needs for protections and DEI efforts across corporate America. So I think, in a strange way, it does remind us why we're here. It gives us lifetime examples, and it validates that we are right and righteous in what we're calling for. So again, thank you all for being here. Tanika and Daniel, I am getting lots of texts and messages around how inspiring you all have been in just sharing your story and your expertise and your knowledge and your brilliance. So thank you. So with that, I'm going to bring all the speakers to this screen, and we're going to go through some questions that we have gotten. So if folks have not had a chance yet, please offer your questions in the Q&A box. Also, we'll look to see if there's any that maybe got dropped somewhere else. But yeah, let's see where we're at. I'm going to see if I can access them. Oh, we got a lot of, yes. Okay. Okay, we got a lot of trolling in there. All right, so great. We have some questions on kind of like credibility for racial equity audits. So I will say this is a bit more of a, investor niche, kind of getting into the weeds, and I would invite investors to have these discussions among themselves. There's a lot of great existing formations, and I think these conversations are happening actively around proponents that are advocating for racial equity audits. There's also an incredible initiative of a cohort coming together to really effectively focus on getting these processes to be fully comprehensive. But I'll just offer in the interim, that doesn't mean that there's no action needed, that we shouldn't still try our best, and that we should not let, it's kind of my closing comments, but I'll offer them here, not let perfection heed our progress. And so I do think that a lot of these processes have resulted in positive changes for companies. We're hearing from a lot of the companies' leaders that they do not regret taking them on, that they actually found a lot of learnings and process. I also work with civil rights and stakeholder groups that does a lot of engagements with companies that have completed their inaugural racial equity audits, and we're learning from them around what their best learnings are, where they want to take these kinds of assessments in the future. And so I think there is a lot of growth in a room with racial equity audit in particular, but I do think even as they stand now with some great auditing firms, they are still effective measures to start collecting at the very baseline important data that investors, stakeholders, communities deserve to know as it relates to corporations' business practices in relation to racial equity. So I'll just pause there. I don't know if any other panelists had kind of anything you'd wanted to add on kind of credibility of racial equity audits. Yeah, Yumi, yeah.
Wilmer Hale, no, no. I mean, I think they're known to be anti-union, union busters. There is some overlay. The Labor Rights Investment Network also does a report on labor rights assessment, which is, I think, adjacent in terms of how to assess a company's credibility. But an assessor, I would start by just Googling them, and where they've been employed and the type of impact that they have reported on first. And you can reach out to, I think, a whole network of other investors who can give more pointers on how to assess whether or not such an assessment is done well. But anyone will tell you, the first line of defense for a company is to choose someone who's not going to do a good job, who may not listen to workers, who may not hear, the voices of folks on this panel. So it does require a bit of due diligence, but if you're a true investor, this is what we do, right? Is, investigate, research, and engage companies. So I would recommend that first and foremost.
Thanks so much, Yumi. I'll just also plug in that resource list that we share. You'll see a 2-pager from Majority Action on what we conduct contributes to a credible racial equity audit. And those points that Yumi just hit on, an independent expert auditor with a background in racial justice, civil rights, workers' rights are really important to seek out, as well as stakeholder engagement. Are they talking to the workers at that company in this audit process? And so those are all things that investors should consider as they advocate for these types of solutions. So unless there's, feel free to ask any more questions. I did have a question, particularly for Tanika and Daniel. I'm curious. So what we hear from Walmart often the time is that they're already doing all of these things that address worker safety or that address racial inequity. And they have the President's Council on this, and there's different initiatives that are available to, all workers. And so that, they're offering that in terms of why they would not need to take on additional work and review here. I'm curious, Daniel and Tanika, have you been in touch with a lot of those initiatives that the company touts and puts in front, or is there a gap there or a disconnect in your experience? And does that question make sense?
Me personally, I haven't heard of any of these initiatives you're speaking of. As far as making it safer, there was a time, because I've been at Walmart for 6 years, there was a time when we would have a huddle when your shift starts and you would stretch. Because, a lot of people forget to stretch. I mean, stretching is important. It was a key thing. You would even get in trouble if you weren't at the huddle to stretch to prevent any kind of injuries. We no longer stretch. We no longer have a huddle. It's just work. Like, if you don't stretch on your own, and I'm older, so I understand the importance of stretching. I'm 39 years old. I've been working a long time, so a good stretch does me good. So I need that stretch, and it used to be a requirement. Like, there used to be posters that had it, like you had to be there, like you would be in trouble about it. And now, no, we don't even stretch. And it sounds something so small, but it makes a major difference of people sustaining injuries while they're at work. I mean, if you warm up a little bit, it could prevent you from injuring your back like I did, or from someone, doing something, turning the wrong way too fast. Like, it's not as safe as they say. We have more and more instances of people getting injured and not reporting. And a lot of times that comes from people need their money. Like, we're not making enough. We're not making a livable wage as it is. So we can't afford to be off of work without pay. Because even if you get a leave of absence and it's approved, you have 7 days that if you don't have the time to cover, you've taken a loss. So many people can't afford to take the loss.
That is true, what Technica says. A lot of people don't want to lose their wages and stuff, so they decided to just not report it. They decided to just go on and keep on working because they're hurting wage-wise, they're hurting money-wise, and they're trying to provide for their families. And so that's why some people don't report accidents to the bosses, to the managers. Only time they report it if it really gets serious, where they cannot physically work, then they would report. But other than that, I haven't been seeing any initiatives Walmart has done in the past 30 years. They haven't been really um, speaking about safety as much like they did in the past. They just worrying about the bottom line. That's all they worried about.
Wow. Thank you both, Tanika and Daniel. I think, yeah, your experience there is so important for us to be able to hear and listen to, that there's clearly a gap in what the company is putting forward as what they're, pushing as solutions, and how the workers are feeling them. So thank you both so much for sharing that experience. And, Tanika, I think you said you've been a Walmart associate for over 6 years, but even in that 6 years, there's been a change, right? And so also being mindful of what once might have been, that we're not still assuming that's still the practices and policies of the companies that we're engaging. So thank you both. Brittany, I wonder if, there's off the Dirty Dozens report, if you all are finding any like similarities between the Dirty Dozen employers, or either in company response or in the workers that you're, stories that you're gathering. Just curious around kind of what's a through line that you're seeing in terms of accountability at these companies.
As far as accountability, like we don't often get responses back from the Dirty Dozen, from the employers. But what I do think it does is it does bring more allies together to help these workers who are, again, like I stated, we really do make sure that one big part of our Dirty Dozen with these employers is that there are active campaigns. And so getting more eyes on those campaigns so more allies can uplift those issues, to make changes, to bring OSHA into that conversation as well, to highlight these are issues that are happening, and really kind of get the change that way. And so sometimes it's very slow, and you don't to get out the Dirty Dozen list, like we don't keep the same people every year. Some change from year to year may change just based on different campaigns that go along, but to have the complete turnaround, it's really just to do the opposite of what landed you there. And so, and then we haven't had to, like, maybe with changes of, if a company's been bought out, we haven't had to issue any statements to backtrack any we do, because we do extensive research on our Dirty Dozen employers.
Thanks so much, Brittany. Yeah, and that's the verifiable information and research is so critical for all of us, particularly for those of us making important decisions that have impact. So thank you so much, Brittany, for sharing those thoughts. I just want to, take a quick second. If any of our speakers have any last kind of things that they want to share with the audience before we move to our call to action, I will invite you to do so now. If that feels right, I would love to just take a second to do there. And if folks just could offer a closing remark, if you will. Yumi, do you mind starting with you?
Sorry. I think, for investors, the case is pretty clear, I think, as you've heard the workers speak. And I think your job is to hold management and this board accountable, for some of the work and safety issues that are happening under their watch. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yumi. Brittany, how about you? Any last thoughts that you can offer to our audience here?
I saw the question earlier, of how customers, and how can you continue to show solidarity to continue to uplift these issues to Walmart, to let them know that you stand by that, and you are, your dollar matters, and you want the change to happen, because people deserve better than what they're receiving right now.
Thanks so much, Brittany. Tanika, do you have last thoughts for our audience?
I just want to let anyone that is a Walmart worker on here know that their voice does matter, that they can definitely share their story. They can reach out to anybody, as far as UFR, United for Respect, to get any more information that they may need on any things that they can do to help. And I'm just always for the little guy, the man that may be afraid to speak on his own behalf. I'm definitely going to continue to just try to raise awareness and make it be known that though it's not safe at Walmart, and we need to do a racial equity audit to really get down to, what needs to change so that we can have a better working environment and a better place for people to want to bring their families.
Thank you, Tanika. Yes, absolutely. Daniel, how about you? Any last remarks that you'd like to offer?
First of all, I'd like to tell the associates who are shareholders, please, please, please make sure that you vote for this proposal. Vote for it, not against it, because we definitely need safety environment, work environment at Walmart, at our Walmart stores. So please vote for that proposal, please. Safety and health issue proposal for Walmart, because we need it in our stores. Right now, we definitely need it. As you see and you hear it on the news, what's going on right now, we need it. That's all I have to say is we need that proposal to be passed so Walmart can definitely get started on that and make it a policy immediately. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it, and God bless.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, all of our speakers and presenters. Your words are resounding and so important, critically important in these times more than ever. Yes, may our solidarity keep us safe. May we use our voices and push against, yes, fear in those important ways. So thank you all so much. I would love to just move us to our call to action in our last few moments together. Daniel and Tanika, Yumi, Brittany, they all already hit on it. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate what we come here to do. It's to learn, but it's also to act. It's to inform our actions, right? So what can we do right now to encourage Walmart's corporate leaders to take the necessary actions to foster a safer and more equitable business model? We've heard directly from the workers that this is a need. So what can we do? Next slide, please. Now, these are a little bit more general recommendations. We please reach out to any of our co-hosts or our speakers today if you want more details, if you want the longer list of calls to action. But we wanted to leave you with this. For Walmart workers, use your voice, sign the petition, circulate it, amplify it. Others, support and amplify the petition. You know that it exists. We know that workers are calling for these initiatives. So let's make sure that we are doing our part to amplify their voices and their call. Advocates, policymakers, we hope that you continue to uplift worker voices in your reporting, in your policymaking, in the articles that you write. We ask that you support Walmart workers in their calls for workplace safety, racial equity, and workplace rights. Investors on the call, we are asking you to vote for all 4 proposals and to communicate your support to other investors ahead of the June 5th annual general meeting. As you consider all of these actions, you can feel free to reach out to United for Respect for any questions about the 2 worker-backed shareholder proposals and the worker petition. For any investors in the audience who would like to learn more or discuss the actions they are going to take, you can reach out to us at investors@majorityact.org. And for those interested in what's moving in Congress and how that can help or hurt Walmart's workers, what Walmart's workers are calling for, please reach out to our partners at Americans for Financial Reform, at Natalia at ourfinancialsecurity.org. As mentioned, we have a little poll up here. We want to see what kind of support we are able to get for our workers after them sharing their stories and their facts and their expertise. Please feel free to answer this. We'll try that at the very end here. But as in our closing moments, thank you all again for joining us here on this May Day in this important moment. I want to remind us that we should not allow perfection to be the enemy of our progress once again. That our voices, our proposals, our solutions, they don't need to solve for anything and everything before we champion them. We cannot get there if we do not try. And we must not heed our own progress towards the future that we know we all deserve. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm hoping we got some positive responses on who's be able to support the call from workers, and those who have more questions. I hope that you will reach out and lean into your curiosity because we need you now more than ever. So thank you all so much. We will definitely be in touch with follow-up communications with all our materials. Thank you to our wonderful panel and speakers at the Roundtable table, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, Tanika Hightower, and Daniel Coles, Brittany Jenkins, and Yumi Narita. Thank you all again so much for joining us. Thanks for our co-hosts, United for Respect and Americans for Financial Reform. I'm Whitney Shepard with Majority Action, and until next time, thank you all.